for bureaucracy's basement to your ears. This is the Queen City Improvement Bureau. Each week, the dedicated staff of the Bureau meet to file recommendations, make reports, and survive on water that drips from the boiler pipes into our open mouths as we sleep in a bed of dot to explain to people. Maybe one day, we'll escape from the subterranean hell that is this office, but until that day comes, the city is not going to improve itself. So here we stay, reading the intro in a funny pace and improving things. This meeting is now in session.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
How are you doing?
Full of holiday cheer.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Irish holiday cheer.
Irish holiday cheer.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought I'd put on the accent.
Why?
Huh.
You know what we think about the Irish?
It's
entirely too green, those people.
It's too cheery.
Too cheerful.
Too cheerful in the holidays. If you ignore, like, Maxwell laundries and famine and centuries of backwardness and depression, other than that, just great.
Just very cheerful. Awesome. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, can I do a shout-out?
You can.
To start the meeting?
You may do a shout-out.
Shout-out to Multinational, Rebellion Brewing's Mark Heisey, John Kennedy of The Exchange, and Matt Robinson of Play With Your Food, which is a local, gaming event that last year raised nearly $70,000 for Carmichael Outreach.
Wow.
Carmichael Outreach. I can't say these words.
Carmichael Outreach.
Yes. So anyways, lovely folks at all of them. Highly recommend. If you have not checked out the Multinational Tap room, I don't even know what you call it. It's just like a friendly space.
A room with taps.
Downtown. Highly recommend.
Remember.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the 5th of
Nothing
November.
in November? Okay.
But that time when we actually did a live show.
We did, that's right.
From Multinational.
Yeah, and you know what else? We also did one from Rebellion Brewing.
We did.
Yeah.
We did, man. I guess we must enjoy places that serve beer.
Yeah, I wonder.
even though me and beer just do not get along.
No.
But I do like places that brew and serve it.
Same here. Yeah. So, how you doing otherwise?
Otherwise, aside from that very bad fake Irish accent and so on, quite well. Quite well, thank you.
Good.
I feel like we have not been sat down to hash out the city's weekly goings on for quite some time. It's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like forever.
Yeah, no, it does. But yeah, it has only been 14 days. But we should get to the attendance because we got a lot of stuff to get through.
Really? A lot of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, are you Paul Deschênes?
I am Paul Deschênes.
Am I Aidan Morgan?
You are.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I wrote it down.
How many times?
Several times. I wrote it on a mirror.
Did you?
So before,
Did you breathe on the mirror and write your name on it so it would freak me out the next time I showered?
Yes.
Smart.
Spooky. Why does that imply we share a bathroom? Well, I guess if the kayfabe is that we have this office, we live there. Right. All right. Cool.
You know, it's not kayfabe if you keep talking about it as kayfabe.
Well, the trick of it, we're doing meta kayfabe.
Yeah.
Just real mind-blowing stuff.
Mind.
We're fully committed to the bit, but we're also fully committed to pointing out the bit.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise...
100%.
Yeah.
Because we're all postmodernists here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, so something happened while we were on a bit of a break there.
Did city council members get along?
They did.
Did they get along so well?
Oh, my God, so well. They're like best buds.
Apparently, they got a little ski lodge together.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you they got each other Secret Santas.
Oh, I bet you they're probably doing like a whole Seven Dwarves thing where they're all sleeping together in the same room in little beds.
Yeah, every morning they would get up and go downstairs and make themselves little hot chocolates with the little tiny marshmallows, and Sarah Turnbull would boop everybody's nose.
Yep, and then they decide to raise some taxes.
Yeah, they did. But I wasn't going to talk about that right away.
Okay.
Because there's something else that happened that I thought was noteworthy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Globe and Mail came out with their list of the top 100 most livable cities in Canada. And Regina did really good. Okay. Yeah. How good? So, the list, I'm just going to go over some of the 100. I'm not going to go over the full 100. So the top 10.
Well, that would kill some time, though.
You would. The top 10, North Vancouver, number 2, West Vancouver, number 3, Victoria. So all three of these I can kind of get. Like, I assume that they're all like insanely expensive to live there.
Yep.
Like monstrously expensive.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do anything with your life and enjoy your life and all the wonderful things there, you would need to spend a lot of money. But they're numbers 1, 2, and 3. And then things start to take a different turn.
Get a little weird?
Yeah. Number 4, Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay.
Fourth most livable city in Canada, Winnipeg.
Okay.
Number 5, you're never going to guess. I'll just tell you. Regina, Saskatchewan.
See,
the Queen City, number 5 most livable.
I don't believe them.
Well,
I wish I did.
Carry on?
Okay,
yeah.
Carry on.
No, because you're not going to believe what's number 6.
I hope it's Saskatoon.
It is Saskatoon. We beat them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Then number 7 is Calgary, Alberta.
Okay.
And then number 8, Pitt Meadows, BC, which I had not heard of until it scored number 8 in the top 100. 2024 most livable cities in Canada.
Real up-and-comer, that Pitt Meadows.
Yeah. Number 9, Penticton.
Okay.
And then number 10 is Oakville, Ontario. And then I wanted to go through some cities that I have either fond feelings for, some memories of, or some kind of association in my head.
Please do.
Okay, number 12 was Vancouver, BC.
I've heard of that place.
Yeah. Now, Vancouver, I've been there, lived there. It is a wonderful city. Could never afford to live there again. Number 16, Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa is a phenomenal city. You could actually afford to live there. It is amazing. It should not be number 16. Ottawa is a top 5 city. Number 27 is Edmonton, Alberta. Number 33 is Fredericton, New Brunswick. I've lived in both those cities. They are amazing. These are top 10 cities.
Oh, yeah.
Halifax is number 30-9.
Also, I do not believe that. Because I've lived there. I grew up there. Oh, never mind. Maybe I'm just biased.
53, Yellowknife. 54, Charlottetown.
What?
55, Whitehorse. 56, Hamilton, Ontario.
Well, okay.
82 is Toronto, Ontario.
Okay.
And 99 is St. John's, Newfoundland. And number 100, just so we know what it ends on, is Rouyn-Noranda, Quebec, which I have never heard of.
Is St. John on the list?
Okay, yeah, it's on there. I just don't know where. I don't have the full list in front of me. Just the
now
ones.
we know there is something deeply wrong.
Do you know what is not on this list, though?
What?
Which should invalidate this list?
Is Moose Jaw?
Moose Jaw is on the list.
Okay, that
you know
makes
what
sense.
is not on the list?
What's that?
Friggin' Montreal.
Montreal is not on the top 100.
Not in the top 100 most livable cities. Montreal is a world-class city. If you follow anything in urbanist circles, they point to Montreal as one of the most livable cities in the world.
Yeah, it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my head around this listing because it seems that every place that I've ever lived or been in that struck me as in any way worthwhile is way down there.
Yeah, or Montreal, which is not on the list.
Yeah. Although I do think Saskatoon is a very livable city.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah. I actually find Regina, the Queen City, to be very, very livable.
It is livable.
But when you put it against
Halifax,
Fredericton, Edmonton.
So what are the criteria? I think this is the question. I need to ask.
So they say that their evaluation involved 50 variables which span 10 categories that they considered crucial. These included economy, housing, demographics, healthcare, safety, education, community amenities, transportation, and climate. And again, I don't know how you can take those and come up with the list that they did. The actual I don't know, it's all in a black box, man.
Yeah. 2 Saskatchewan cities in the top 10, that's just
Sketcherific.
That's Sketcherific. I love it.
So I decided I was going to do my own listing.
Ooh.
Because I figured there was one variable. So when this dropped, this list dropped, and it was said, oh yeah, Regina, it's the 5th most livable city in the country. It was like minus 29 degrees outside. It was like just a frozen wasteland. If you stepped outdoors, like body parts, it was like snow piercer cold outside. So I decided to take a look at one of the categories that they had, which is days with a minimum temperature that's less than negative 15 degrees Celsius. Regina, 5th most livable city in the country, 70 days a year. So that means 20%, almost 20% of your year, 1 in 5 days, it is below negative 15 degrees Celsius. So if you spread that out over an entire year, those days, that's like 1.4 days out of every week in Regina.
That's not something I needed to know.
Yeah. So it's like, it'd be like if you're every like Saturday and, most of your Sunday was like freezing cold every week that you lived here.
Man, it's so cold here. I bet you could build a fortress of solitude.
You could totally. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you crashed down to earth, bruised and bloody and battered, I bet you could call your cape-wearing dog to
You
drag
probably
you home.
could. And you know what? I bet you Zod would be like, I can't be bothered to go there, man. It's too cold for me. So yeah, I took a look at, out of the cities that I've mentioned in that list above, I took a look at how many of them fell at negative 15 degrees below zero or lower, and how many days they had a year. And I made my own list. So my top 13, Vancouver is number 1 at 0 days below 15 degrees. St. John's, Newfoundland is 5 days a year. So it comes in at number 2. Hamilton, 12 days a year. So 3. Toronto, 13 days a year. So number 4. Halifax only has 15 days a year below negative 15. So it's coming in at 5. It ties with Montreal, which didn't even make their list, which also has 15 days a year below negative 15. Guelph comes in at 6 with 19 days. Fredericton, 37 a year. Ottawa, 40 a year. Quebec City, 52 a year. Edmonton, 64 a year. Regina on this list is number 12 at 70 a year. And Rouyn-Noranda, which finished bottom of the 100, finishes at the bottom of my list as well because it has 80 a year. So, yeah. So I like my list better.
I think I kind of prefer your list as well. So my knee-jerk response, hearing the preponderance of Western cities, is to be like curmudgeonly.
That's a good point.
Going, what are we talking about here? But now that I sort of, my sober second thought.
Okay.
After being all like, are these bought and paid for? Which, who knows?
Yeah.
Are we seeing some sort of like decline of the East in this country? Some sort of like cultural and like economic eclipse of these former centers of power?
I don't know, man. I doubt it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put a spin on this list, which offends my soul.
I think if you were to just go off housing prices, this list it doesn't make any sense because North Vancouver is at the top.
Well, maybe it's relative to income.
Sure, good point.
So, yeah. So it's probably, I think, I know that there are arguments to say that Regina and Saskatchewan is not as affordable as it seems because incomes aren't always up to snuff. But I think probably that's got a lot to do with that list. What's livable housing that you can afford. So that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to see Regina beating out Saskatoon.
Yeah, that's always nice.
Yeah. That's
but it didn't beat Winnipeg.
Didn't beat.
So screw this list.
What in the world could beat Winnipeg? Huh?
That's true. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not going to make any excuses for this list. The number of days a year that you won't go outside and die from frostbite or hypothermia, I think that's the only metric I need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a very worthy metric. Yeah. I don't have any metrics of my own. I don't know. Places with good movie theaters. That'll be my list.
I was just thinking about that today. Waterloo, Ontario. Now, it's been a few years since I've been there and spent any time there. It had downtown Waterloo had 5 rep theater screens at 2 different repertory cinemas in their downtown.
That's cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of them played like a mix of rep cinema and mainstream cinema, and then the other one was, very sort of arty cinema. Huh. And they were both in like very cool buildings, and I don't know, Waterloo has a surprisingly livable downtown. The rest of the city is a nightmare, but...
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, we're on 91.3 FM CJTR, Regina Community Radio. We're the Queen City Improvement Bureau, part of the Vocal Fry Network. Yeah. Hey, so something happened yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah, I got an emergency interview with our new mayor, Chad Baczynski.
Whoa.
I don't think I pronounced his name right. Baczynski.
Yes.
Yeah. So we talked, the last time we got together, we talked about some of the things that the leader of the federal opposition, Pierre Poilievre, had to say about not wanting to give infrastructure funding to cities because cities are awash in cash and they're greedy, and they're why we don't have any infrastructure.
Poilievre is a deeply unserious person.
He really is. And so I wanted to get some comment from a few places. So I contacted SUMA, the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. They said, yeah, we don't want to talk to you. And I contacted the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and they said, yeah, we have no comment on this at this time. And I contacted the Housing Ministry, the Federal Housing Ministry.
Yes.
So Housing Infrastructure. I was actually I was angling for an interview with Sean Fraser, the Housing Minister. And then things went kind of badly.
Just trying to... what, can I get Chrystia Freeland to talk about economics then?
Yeah.
Can I get anybody?
They were like, no. Oh, they were like, when they would pick up the phone, there would just be screaming and the sound of fire in the background.
And a giant hollow echoing sound because there was nobody else in the entire building.
Yeah. So,
I'm the last person in this entire party. I'm just the guy who answers the phones, and I'm quitting. Okay, bye.
I'm going to have to eat my own leg.
to get out of the strap.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't think that interview is going to happen, but I did contact Mayor Baczynski's office, and they said, yeah, but we've got 15 minutes for you if you want to get this in before your last episode.
Oh, cool.
Before the break. And so I was like, sure, I will take it. So recorded this interview with Mayor Baczynski about federal infrastructure funding, and I thought I would play that for everybody.
Oh, yes.
Right now. Oh, damn, you're better dressed than I am.
Are you sure? I don't know.
Yeah.
You're comfier.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for doing this.
For sure.
Especially this time of day. I had some questions for you. I thought they were going to be far off hypothetical questions, but after yesterday, they are much more relevant. Mainly, I wanted to talk to you about federal infrastructure funding.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, we've been accessing things like the Housing Accelerator Fund, obviously, Rapid Housing Initiative, but federal infrastructure support goes back to things like the green funding that supported the gas-to-energy project expansion at the landfill. If you could just comment briefly to sort of set the context of what being able to access that federal money has meant for Regina.
Yeah, I mean... It's a big deal. We have a lot of plans, not only in place, but actively being executed on. I'm just going to pull up a couple notes here because, we've got financial incentives to preserve and increase, affordable housing stock, incentives to convert underutilized vacant office spaces. We've got a lot going on, not only planned, but actually ongoing. We issued 1,300 permits last year, 44% of the HAF target that we have. We did that last year alone. So we're right into it. The use of this is critically important to a lot of plans that we have.
Well, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has remarked multiple times that he intends to end the Housing Accelerator Fund. This is something that we've been covering very closely at the Queen City Improvement Bureau. He's going to replace that, he says, with a cut to GST on new homes under $1 million. So how would... I guess you've just kind of remarked on like how that would impact the City of Regina, considering we still don't have all of the money from that. But do you think that this could threaten, like if this funding is lost, will that threaten council's commitment to things like zoning modernization and parking liberalization, things that were like achieved because of the Housing Accelerator Fund?
It absolutely could. It's because the challenge is that every time you replace a program with another program, again, that's kind of in a way going back to the drawing board, right? You're going back to figure out, like, we have plans that we know we have to execute as a city. Now we have to go back and figure out how do we execute those plans that we know are things that we need to do with a different funding model or a different program, or whether we can even access those funds under that, that new dialogue altogether. So, it's an impact. It's a definite impact to the city, and it's going to cause work for the city to have to figure out how that's going to look.
Now, with some of the spin-off benefits of the Housing Accelerator Fund, things like increasing density allowances within our zoning bylaw, and ending parking minimums. These things were overwhelmingly unpopular with the public, and it was because of this financial incentive that not just Regina but cities right across Canada were willing to modernize their bylaws. There's widespread consensus amongst urban planners and city administrators that these changes are, in the long term, overwhelmingly beneficial to cities. But again, at the same time, they're very unpopular at the local level. For you, how would you respond to not having that financial incentive as a backstop to these things? Like, do you support carrying these things on, or would you listen to or be friendly to calls to have those changes reversed?
No, regardless of the funding, I still support those changes going forward, and I'll tell you why. It goes back to the sprawl and the makeup of our city. So it's a challenge. Like, I get it, and that's a change for us as a mid-sized city to see that densification and intensification and those changes happen. That's a change in kind of the culture and the feel of our city. But when we talk about increasing property taxes and that sprawl of infrastructure, the only way to start to get some control over that is to work towards some of these more modern ideas of that densification in how we build and operate. So it's something I support because it is, in the long term, how we become more sustainable and how we get our property taxes and get them more under control.
Okay, so in an interview with Aurora today on November 30th, Poilievre answered some questions, and I just wanted to read you a couple quotes here from that interview. This is Poilievre speaking. Municipal governments, don't ever let them bullshit you. They are bursting with cash and they're wasting it all. That's why we don't have enough infrastructure. Cut the bureaucracy, get their hands out of people's pockets. He further went on to say, Trudeau will give more and more to incompetent, greedy, money-hungry municipal politicians. I'll cut the bureaucracy and axe attacks. So, I was wondering if you could comment on this claim that municipal governments are greedy, wasteful, but swimming in cash.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been searching this office and I have yet to find the piles of cash in any drawer. So haven't found that yet. I'll let you know if I do.
Okay, but, good.
No, I mean, our public, our accounts are public. It's disappointing to hear that, just because, we have all that information's available. We know the financial challenges. We know the infrastructure challenges. We know the social challenges. Like we know the work that we have to do and the limited funding that we're working within to do it. So, again, I think, some of those statements are coming from a place of just, not seeing the full picture in that. And, I would love the opportunity to sit down and, really dive into the details to show some of the challenges that we are facing financially.
Cool. This allegation has been made before by other politicians that cities have so much money. Typically, they're referring to municipal reserve funds. Could you just comment on, why cities have reserves?
Yeah, cities have reserves for things like, we might be anticipating today or tonight, right? You budget for X number of snowfalls, which equates to, X number of equipment that gets deployed. As soon as you have that extra event or, unpredictable thing that happens, you need to access money somewhere. So cities can't run a deficit. We legally aren't allowed to. We're different than different levels of government. So, for us, we have to have those reserves in order to account for that.
Have you been in touch, new mayor? Have you had some time to speak to the two main sort of lobby groups would be SUMA and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? Have you been in touch with them about what you guys as municipal leaders will be doing to sort of lobby to maintain that those funding streams for cities?
So we're in the new year. That's when we're going to be meeting here. So the first kind of month here has been a lot of orientation, kind of get ready for first council. But we do have time booked with both of those organizations going into the new year.
Cool. I can't remember. Has it been decided who will be representing the city at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? I mean, obviously you might, or I think you will be at the Big City Mayor's Caucus, but will anybody else be representing at FCM?
Yeah, for FCM, yes. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think we've got that all sorted out and it should be all posted public.
Those are the questions that I had for you. How are things going though?
Good. Things are going good. Yeah, so far so good. It's been a good start. Pulling people together and kind of figuring out how we're going to operate together has been really good so far. So lots of engagement, lots of good conversation already. So it's going good.
Right on. Okay, great to hear. And that was our interview with Mayor Chad Baczynski.
That's good brief interview.
Yeah.
I think you should have interjected some words from Polyev there, just maybe to say, and the worst of the lot, said Polyev, is that new mayor Chad Baczynski.
Oh, he's spend crazy.
It's
all going to Moose.
Just exactly. Just getting his hair even higher. Yeah. We can't afford that. Canada can't afford to fund Chad Baczynski's hairstyle. That's what you should have said that. I think that would have been really put some spice into that interview.
In case anybody is wondering, there's a great deal of jealousy, hair jealousy, follicle jealousy.
Hair jealousy. Yeah.
With the Queen City Improvement Bureau.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have little. I have pretty much none, at least on the top of my head. Yeah. And Chad Baczynski has it all.
He took our hair.
He took our hair. I think we should bring him in for an interview and say, why did you take our hair?
Give us our hair back. Give us our hair back, Chad.
We're gonna cut your crop.
All right. On that note, we have to go to Innovative Revenue Tools. And we're back from Innovative Revenue Tools.
So I woke up and I was like, where's my hair? And I'm like, then I saw that Baczynski guy. I knew he had it.
What's my hair back? What's my hair?
Okay, I'm sure people are now going to write us and say, stop that.
Yeah.
And they would be right to do it.
There are worse fates.
Anywho.
Yeah. So, what'd you think?
I thought he came off quite well in that piece. I thought, he had good answers. Mm-hmm. Sounded very personable.
Yep.
And he seems positive. He seems almost optimistic.
Yeah, same.
I mean, he's got a few years for that life and that spirit to be drained from him.
Yeah, and that hairline to recede.
Exactly. But in the meantime, all is well. Yeah. I noticed we've spoken about this before. There seems to be a real the members of council seem to enjoy mentioning that they're all getting along really well.
Right.
Yes. They love to emphasize that they're not at each other's throats or being fractious, like perhaps former council assemblies may have been.
Yeah. Former council was not fractious that first meeting either.
No, they started off friendly as well.
Yeah, they started off friendly. They were getting a ton of stuff done. Yeah. I remember that first meeting. Mayor Masters was positively giddy.
Oh yeah,
and she was giggling her way through that meeting. She was enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
That ended.
that ended. I mean, yeah, that's, and I'm not surprised. Well, you could tell after a time her in council. It wasn't even that she sounded unhappy. I think she just was like, she sounded like someone who was dealing with a group of unruly kids, and was just really tired of it.
Yeah. So I think that points to something with this council that, I mean, it's very easy for them to get along because they haven't done anything yet.
No, they have not. Their mettle has not been tested.
Not in the slightest. That first meeting that they had on December 11th, it was sort of written up in the paper as, they made some big decisions, or they came out of the gate strong, and they were very civil, which they were. Mm-hmm. But all the decisions in that meeting were made before the meeting even happened.
Right.
Like there was nothing in there. There were things that could be construed as controversial, but the controversial parts of it had already been discussed and debated by the previous council. Mm-hmm. And this council was just basically shepherding a few reports over the finish line. Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of reports.
Which is which I think is a good way for a new council to start.
100%.
It's some wins straight out of the gate.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, a lot of reports actually got moved to the new year. So there was a pilot project for free transit for teens. So that won't be discussed until January, towards the end of January. Mm-hmm. All the budgets are going to be taking place in the next year. And there was a motion about nuisance and underutilized properties that was also moved to the new year. So that's there was 5 or 6 reports. Those are just the 3 that I remember off the top of my head. But then there were a bunch of decisions that were made where there were no decision points for council with these things. There was the water network expansion. This was 1.34%. We said it was 1.39% last time. Mm-hmm. Mill rate increased to cover this. There was a supplemental report saying we have now negotiated the debt instrument, the debenture, and now that we have the interest rate locked in, it'll be 1.34% to pay for it. So it came down 0.05%.
Not small?
That's no.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be to cover the borrowing that's going to be needed to pay for this project. This project was approved over a year ago, and this was the final stage. Council could not say no to this because with the debenture having already been negotiated, if council decided to let's refer this back to administration and see if they can get us a better number, that could have thrown our ability to borrow any money ever again into doubt.
What did they think they were, the previous council?
Yeah. So, they got that across the finish line. The other one was the pre-approvals for the capital projects in 2025. If council were to say no to this report, none of the work that was planned to get started next year could get started until after March. And a bunch of the projects where the RFPs have already gone out and they've already selected contractors to do the work, those contractors would not get paid. That work would not happen. So all that work would end up being more costly in the long run. Mm-hmm. And then the last big one was the rider rent deal.
Oh, woo.
Yeah. So here's what was going on. Over COVID, the riders weren't paying their rent. A lot of places were not paying their rent, but we're kind of their landlords. Right? Well, Real is, but we own Real. So there were $3.6 million of accounts receivable that they owed for a bunch of games that they would have booked the stadium for that were not played because the CFL had shut down the seasons.
Gotcha.
Right. So the deal that they had struck is that the city was going to eat $1.33 million of that $3.6 million of unpaid rent. Mm-hmm. And the riders were going to pay the remaining, was that 2.3 something percent?
That sounds great.
$2.3 million?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Secured $2.3 million in our pockets.
Yeah, yes. But we're eating 1.3.
Yes.
So you could say, well, man, it doesn't really matter for your landlord if you weren't using the space that you had booked. You'd booked the space.
True.
And we're all supposed to be happy, community partners here. So maybe they should pay. But apparently if council had said no to this deal, the next step was the Rough Riders taking us to court.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did not show up. The Saskatchewan Rough Rider organization did not come to council to explain their side of the story on this.
Well, imagine how much space they would have taken up.
Exactly.
Huge.
Millions.
Huge guys.
Millions of dollars worth of space. I don't even think the seats in Henry Baker Hall would accommodate these giant men. These titans.
These giant, expensive men.
Brobdingnagian.
Nice.
So they didn't come, and Councillor Flores asked about this. She's like, well, why didn't they come here to at least, make their case for why we should effectively further subsidize them to the tune of $1.3 million? City Manager Nikki Anderson noted that the riders' lawyers told them, don't go to council and now I don't know, I'm reading into it, I'm assuming it's because, what if they said something wrong? Famously well-spoken football players might say something.
You never know.
Yeah, that could get them in trouble at court.
They might say, why? We'd pay $5 million. Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's why they didn't show up.
Okay.
But, anyways. So that happened, and that went through, and there was no discussion about it. It was just basically a rubber stamp.
Okay.
But there were 3 items that I thought would be a bit of a window into how this next council is going to start to shape up. One of them was that item about approving projects for next year. And part of it was that, as you know, the police are building a new campus in the former STC building.
Right.
And that's getting close to the end, so now they have to put in their furniture and equipment. And so that was on the budget. They want to buy that right away so they can put it in and get this project finished next year. Councillor Rasevich had some concerns about, I think it was an $800,000 price tag on that. And so he raised that question again at council, and the police showed up to answer that question. So I thought I would play his question and their answer.
Sounds good.
Hand up. Do you have a question?
Through the chair. Thanks for being here. I kind of asked this question last week because I didn't know the situation. I guess that you're leasing property. You're leasing properties, and now you're amalgamating everything to one place. And I guess my question last week was, is there not? I just asked, is there not potential furniture or fixtures, things that can be, reused, and I guess be sustainable? A percentage or some or not, that cannot be brought over?
Yes. So thank you for the question. I'll preface my answer with just a little bit of context. So according to the Police Act, municipality is obligated to provide adequate and reasonable facilities for police services to maintain a reasonable standard of law enforcement. However, RPS, through our capital budget, we're responsible for program-specific furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and that's what you see that we're asking for in our capital budget. And when we talk about program-specific, it's specific to policing. So, for example, the construction of interview rooms or equipment and furniture related to forensic identification labs, security systems, things that are not normal to a particular business and things that wouldn't be included in the base build that the city is responsible to provide for us. So the request that you see in front of you includes those specific items. It includes security systems. It includes equipment for our forensic identification labs and other specific police required items. There is a small amount related to office furniture, such as desks and filing cabinets and the such. We are reusing most of our old furniture. So the only furniture that aren't being reused are ones that are either so old that they do not meet ergonomic standards or so obsolete that we cannot reconfigure them to meet the new space. Further, as part of the project, we have new square footage being built, so new spaces and new positions that we don't have currently. So there is no old furniture to bring forward into those new spaces. But for the most part, we are using as much of the old furniture as we can.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so that was Councillor Dan Rasevich asking about why do the police need to spend so much on stuff?
You know, if
and the police answering.
If I were Councillor Dan Rasevich, I would have follow-up questions like, you never heard of IKEA? What about, like, your mom and dad have, like, the furniture in the spare room? They can't like, you know, send that down in a truck?
Yeah. Value Village, the famous forensic lab section of Value Village.
Exactly. Apple boxes and, like, blankets? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
You should, like, they need a security system at the police. I rigged up an alarm with an old tin can and some dental floss once.
And like a Gustav Klimt poster? Like, you need $800,000 for that?
Hooey.
Sorry, are we talking about police or like undergraduates? I kind of got lost.
Oh no, it was police.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They probably need like. If I were Rasevich, I would have asked about the line item that said bitchin' hot tubs.
Ooh.
Because the police need bitchin' hot tubs.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you need to chill after a day of fighting crime.
Exactly. And if you want to get your suspects comfortable or witnesses comfortable, you're like, come on, cool off in the hot tub.
Yeah.
But then you put them in jail.
That's smart.
Well, police don't have to tell you the truth.
That's true. They don't.
Don't follow a policeman or a police officer to a hot tub.
Yep.
Because you're probably going to end up in jail.
Yeah, exactly. We've learned that lesson.
We've learned too many times.
Take it from our experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
Third or fourth time we did not get a hot tub, we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Starting not to trust you guys. Defund you people.
Anyways. I don't know. I mean, like, man, it's the early part of every council is this, like, you have these people who ran on common sense, run city like a business, and that butting up against reality.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just find it a little bit tedious now.
It's, we're going to get a little bit of this, but it will, like I said, it will work itself out. I certainly hope.
I hope so. Although there is like a certain generation of dude who, is like constantly convinced of their own common sense as being the guide to how to go forward.
Right.
And no matter how much you tell them no, they cannot be convinced otherwise. So. Yeah,
I mean, it's the very kinds of people who have time on their hands that can run for city council. So there you go.
Yeah. All right, so other stuff that happened at this meeting that I found interesting. The flag motion from last council.
Oh, tell me about the flag motion.
Right, so the flag and proclamation motion, basically it was wide open. If you had and it's like, it dates to like decades ago that this was written. And you could, if you were, a member of a community, like an ethnic community, you could go to City Hall and you could say, hey, we'd like to fly our nation's flag for our Independence Day. Because more like the United States, like less like Canada, but more like us, we achieved independence from Great Britain. We'd like to celebrate. We'd like to wave that in your face, Canada.
We didn't half-ass it like you people. Yes. Anyway.
So other countries would celebrate their freedom from Britain on our flagpoles, and that was issues of concern have been raised about certain nations who are, currently engaged in committing genocides.
Oh, yeah.
And if their nation's flags were flying, that might be bothersome to some other people whose families are being genocided.
Right. That makes sense.
So, there was a motion to revisit the flag and proclamation bylaw, and the decision was that, look, we're going to just fly our standard flag, so Canada, Saskatchewan, and Regina, and then we can deal with our own history of colonialism and failure to liberate ourselves from Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And we will also fly, if there's a dignitary who comes to town, we will fly their flags.
Nice.
And I think certain charitable organizations, non-political charitable organizations will also be able to fly flags. But we wouldn't be flying them for national independence days or nation days, right? This makes some sense with a politically cautious city council to go this route.
Mm-hmm.
I found the questions from one councillor, Councillor Clark Bezo in Ward 10. His questions were, I don't know how to describe them, so I'll just play them for you right now.
Wait, is this going to make me angry? Just
maybe a smidge. Like,
okay.
I'm just, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you through the chair. These comments about Sister City, is that flying the flag of the sister city or the nation? For example, we come here one day and we're looking at the Chinese flag.
Thank you. Through the mayor, it would be the sister city's flag, similar to that if contingency or contingent from Regina went to one of those and they wished to fly a flag, we would bring along the City of Regina flag.
Okay. And just on your note about flags of controversy, the dynamics of the world are such that flags are becoming very controversial, and you know what, anytime that we've got to phone up with the police and get the riot squad over here, is that considered controversy, even though they might not be like 6 months ago or coming up? We've got a lot of issues in the world right now, and the whole premise about this whole policy is to ensure we recognize people and groups, but we don't want to have the riot police show up when we're putting flags up.
Thank you. It's not my place to enter the debate. I can just offer you the perspective that the flying of any nation's flag becomes incredibly subjective in the eye of the beholder. As I explained to the previous council, regardless of their thoughts, for example, on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, our policy would not have prohibited a citizen asking for the Russian flag to be flown on their national day, because it didn't say you couldn't. Up until last week, we could have flown the Syrian flag, other than the fact that we put the policy on hold. So I'm just saying that things are changing so fast, and with the crossover of ethnic groups in many countries, not always happy factions with each other, we really run the risk of just having something else inflame this going on in the future, and hence the recommendation to keep it to the 6 permanent flags.
Thank you.
All right, we're on 91.3 FM CJTR. We're the Queen City Improvement Bureau, and that was Ward 10's Clark Bezo, Councillor Clark Bezo, asking questions of the city clerk, Jim Nicol.
So Jim Nicol could not speak to the riot police coming out, as they so often do come out to quell something?
I don't even know if we have guys with riot police written on them.
Jeez.
And if we did, if they've ever even been called out since the Regina riot.
That's right.
Which famously went fantastic.
Fantastic, except for one guy named Miller who did not do so well. I don't want to waste mental energy dwelling on that, but I do want to point out that I can't think of a less appropriate or group of less equipped people to discuss sensitive international matters than a city council.
That's a good point.
I just don't think that it's a good spot for it, because I don't think it's you're going to get fruitful debate or conclusions out of it. So I'm glad it only went that far.
Good point. Further. Yeah. Well, what I was surprised by
also, like Bezo and his ilk, I would hate to be cucked by the Chinese flag.
But everything that Jim Nicol said there was either said in the report or implied by the report, and why this was happening. Yeah. This was all stuff that could have been, if he had questions, these questions, he should have put them in an email. Secondly, and it seemed like this was just an opportunity for Councillor Bezo to virtue signal, A, he doesn't like China, and B, he doesn't like those people who do stuff that political ... riot police.
Yeah. Just seems like there's a lot of unsaid stuff that's doing a great deal of heavy lifting.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot of deep thought to know what he was getting at there. And he didn't need to say any of this. He did. But the report was basically going to achieve exactly what Clark Bezo is terrified of. We're not going to have flag raisings that could lead to the riot police.
No.
So he could have just kept his mouth shut, and it would have happened without his involvement.
But I mean, what else? Why else do we have city council meetings if not for people to just say stuff?
Yeah.
They can just say stuff.
I guess. Incidentally, listener Cheryl writes in to say Flags of Sister Cities would be a good band name.
It would be, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not as great as Eastern Pressure Solution.
No, that's a good one.
But Flags of Sisters, yeah, I can actually kind of picture Flags of Sister Cities opening for the Kills or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or for Eastern Pressure Solution.
Or City in Color, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to mention before we wrap up here, the shelter. Ooh. There was a report that should have been on the consent agenda. So that's like the list of reports that the decisions are so made and are so non-controversial that they can just approve them all in a single go, in a big sweeping yay or nay. And one of those things that was on that agenda was the community well-being federal funding opportunity. So again, more infrastructure money from the federal government that we have said yes please to. And this would be money to support our response plan for dealing with homelessness encampments. It would be extra money, and basically we would be taking this money and putting towards projects that we've already said yes to, and we've already applied federal, provincial, and not federal, but provincial and municipal funding is already going to these projects.
Okay.
And this would just be federal money to cap these up with a few extra bucks. So it basically reduces our cost. So Councillor Froh from Ward 3 decided to pull this off the consent agenda.
Mm-hmm.
No idea why. But then he uses it as an opportunity to ask questions about what are we doing about the plan to end homelessness? Because that's coming towards the end of its life, right? Okay. And then administration had to come in and say, hang on a second, let me get through my notes, because they were not expecting this. And they just basically said, yes, we are aware of that. And we've been working on this, and we've got all of the stakeholder groups together. But then Councillor Bizzo, once again, decided to use this. Now, this money that's going to be used is going to be used for multiple things, like the street team. It's going to help them fund an expansion.
Yes.
It's going to be used for the YWCA's shelter initiatives, because they offer housing to homeless people transitioning off homelessness. Some of it, a portion of it, will also be going towards the new emergency shelter that Council has approved on not Hamilton Street, Halifax Street, just to the east of downtown. So Councillor Bizzo decided to ask some questions about the shelter. And I'm not going to play this entire clip, but this will just give you a sense of the questions that he was asking about a project that has already been approved and we would just be getting extra money for.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Bizzo.
Yes, thank you. So specifically to this funding model, at the executive committee, we discussed an operational cost of $30,000 per month. What are the projected costs over the next 5 years? So is that going to be sustained, or is that going to be rising? What are the costs to operate this facility? And secondly, is there any external sourcing for covering that funding?
Through the chair, so you're correct in that right now what we're counting is about $30,000 a month, or about $350,000 a year for operational costs. We'll likely have to review the numbers to understand over time, as we assume that those prices would go up. Right now, how it is currently being funded is that there is operating funding within our budget to cover these costs. We have about $500,000 dedicated so that we're not ever going over budget and that the cost of the shelter are maintained.
Anything further, Councillor Bizzo?
Just writing some numbers down.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Just through the chair, the Eagles Club had a tax base that they did pay into the city. So
I'm going to shut it down there. I will
Are you just writing some numbers down?
Yes. Sorry. Just let me get these down.
50000.
I'll put the entire clip up on our YouTube.
Okay. 500.
Why? Why is he asking this? It seems like all he wanted to do is point out. He just wanted everybody to know that he is thinking about the operating cost
right.
as well as the capital cost.
Yes.
Bravo! info.
It feels like that definitely could have been an email.
Yeah.
I'll just say that much.
Yeah. Or, read the previous report on this subject that the last council had, and you can download it online. If you need, Clark, any help finding a report on any subject, give me a call.
I think I'm going to be calling him Counselor Just Saying Things.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But good. But it's good to know. And actually, hearing that is really good, because it sounds eminently sensible that they've budgeted carefully and they're going to review the costs.
That's a good point. Administration was like on the friggin' ball.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which was good to hear.
Yep. But yeah, so that was the last council meeting. And I think basically where I was going with this is I think we do have some councillors who... I don't think we can assume that everything is always going to be sunshine and flowers and holding hands and singing Kumbaya. I think there are going to be, especially around things like spending money on social programs and stuff that's considered nice to haves. I think we're going to have some councillors who are going to be throwing wrenches into these meetings.
We shall see.
Yeah. But I guess we should probably talk about ending here.
We should.
Yeah.
I have some questions about ending.
Hang on, I'm just writing some numbers down.
Oh, okay.
Yes?
Well, I move to adjourn.
Oh, I second that motion.
Okay, motion is passed. You have been writing some numbers down on the Queen City Improvement Bureau on 91.3 FM, CJTR, Regina Community Radio. We are broadcast live 7 to 8 Thursday p.m. and rebroadcast Monday afternoons 3 to 4 p.m. You can also find us on Blue Sky, on X, and of course on our website, QueenCityIB.com. Our hosts are Paul Shannon, Aidan Morgan, music by Ryan Hill, a.k.a. Guide Wire. I think... Is that it? I believe the record room is next, and music all on through the evening. And that's it. Keep on improving, John.
Here's some Queen City Improvement Bureau bonus podcast content. First, here's a longer clip of Ward 10's Clark Bezo asking questions about the permanent emergency shelter's operating costs, along with staff's answers.
Okay, Councillor Bezo.
Yes, thank you. So specifically to this funding model at the executive committee, we discussed an operational cost of $30,000 per month. What are the projected costs over the next 5 years? So is that going to be sustained, or is that going to be rising? What are the costs to operate this facility? And secondly, is there any external sourcing for covering that funding?
Through the chair, so you're correct in that right now what we're counting is about $30,000 a month, or about $350,000 a year for operational costs. We'll likely have to review the numbers to understand over time, as we assume that those prices would go up. Right now, how it is currently being funded is that there is operating funding within our budget to cover these costs. We have about $500,000 dedicated so that we're not ever going over budget and that the costs of the shelter are maintained.
Anything further, Councillor Bezo?
Just writing some numbers down.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Just through the chair, the Eagles Club had a tax base that they did pay into the city. So does that number include the lost taxation revenue from that Eagles Club?
Through the chair, no.
So where are the costs then? So we're missing out on a tax base then. What are the true costs of operating this facility, the operational costs? We got $30,000 per month plus the lost taxes, which we have to essentially gain from somewhere. What are the overall costs? Are we looking at more like $40,000 a month?
Through the chair, so the property tax loss that we had specific to the Eagles Club is $21,500. And then in regards to what we've done, that's really all the costs that we have right now based on the last few years running the nest. We haven't come up against any other costs, as the other costs in regards to the operations of the shelter are done through Regina Treaty Status Indian Services with their operations agreement with the province.
Okay, and then one other thing with this investment that we're looking at putting forth, what do we have for metrics of measurements to say how successful this program is going to be or not going to be?
So I think just to interrupt quickly. So again, going back, this is for the federal funding we're getting from the federal government, and it's applied to a number of programs in that. So is that specific to the...
Yeah, that's part of the question. You know, it's great that we're having some federal funding and we're putting up our own dollars, but, you know, do we have anything in place that we're going to measure, say, you know, here's how successful we are?
Thank you, through the chair. So if I was to go through it line by line, the emergency shelter, we look at metrics such as utilization rates. RITSIS also does have some data, frankly, on residents that have stayed there and moved further along the housing continuum. I would say for street team outreach, we do actually provide council with data and statistics on that annually. So it's everything from like number of interactions with people and kind of what they do. I would say for the YWCA shelter, it would be a similar metrics around usage. I would say a lot of the, if anyone ever asks me, like, did this thing make this person better? I will always say no. It's like generally an intersectional community approach. So the metrics I'm looking at generally are tied to, are they being used, and is there general consensus that it is creating a better environment for residents in our community? And then I would say the encampment response coordinator. Right now, we have, I wouldn't say a disjointed response, but if I was to look at the encampment that happened at City Hall last summer, we had a whole bunch of entities doing a whole bunch of different things. And most cities do have like a coordinated encampment response, almost tied to an emergency management approach, where when X happens, you've got social services doing this, you've got the police doing that, you've got the city doing that. So there's more of a coordination approach. And I don't know, is there anything else that you would want me to mention?
And here's a super cut of clips from City Council's discussion of a rider rent deal.
City Manager Nikki Anderson.
Thank you, through the chair. Negotiations with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders Football Club have been ongoing since April 2023, and they're related to unpaid commercial leases to the city during COVID. As context, many landlords provided rent relief during COVID, and approving this settlement has no financial impact on 2024 or any future financials, as the amounts have been expensed in a prior year. In the original report, administration requested that of the approximate $3.55 million owed to the city, that the city grant a partial rent reduction of approximately $1.33 million. The number is largely based on agreement around the spaces that the riders were able to utilize during COVID. And if we do not reach settlement, the next step is legal action prior to April 2025, so coming up soon. And I would say that a compelling consideration in administration's recommendation is the significant risk related to pursuing legal action. So in addition to the time and the expenses related to going to trial, the result may be worse, not necessarily better, than the offer currently in front of you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Flores.
Through the chair, have the members of the Riders Football Club provided any reason why they're not here to share?
Through the chair, I would say that although our negotiations have been spirited, they've been respectful, and I would say we appreciate having them in our community. I have spoken to the executive director. He actually reached out to me directly. Because, frankly, the next step is potentially going to a legal court case. It is their lawyer's high recommendation that they not be here today to speak. And I would say if you were to ask our city solicitor if she would concur with that opinion, that she would likely say yes. So I may pass it over to her. But I would say they did supply a letter. They have been gracious in meeting and communicating and talking back and forth on it, but it really was through their legal counsel that they were advised to not come because this may end up being a court case.
Thank you. And additionally, through the discussions that you've had with them in these negotiations, have they shared any thoughts or communications about how they would respond to resident concerns who might see this run reduction as unfair given the team's standing as a professional sports organization with other revenue streams?
Through the chair, I think it's not my place to respond, frankly, on behalf of the club, but I would say, as we talked about in the report, through COVID, the CFL was completely shut down, so it wasn't a choice, and they are paying rent in the spaces that they used.
We've got Councillor Mancinelli.
Maybe not so much a question as a comment. That stadium is basically activated by the Rough Rider Football Club. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's part of our city. These are a community partner. I'm not a season ticket holder. I'm not the guy that goes to the Rider games. I'll cheer for them, for friends and family, to be, part of the team to some extent, but it's not my cup of coffee. But this is a legal contract. It's for the renting and use of the stadium. This was a friendly agreement come to by two parties, administration on our behalf. There's lots of exit ramps off that lease that we could have fought over, but these are a community partner in the end that went through COVID just like the rest of us. I don't think they came out of it any richer than the rest of us. And trying to get a door closed to look forward and to build is probably where we should be going with this. I think it's an adequate agreement. It reflects the space used. It makes concessions on both sides. It comes to a middle ground that's actually higher on our side of the middle ground than their side. We get 2/3 payment out of it. Starting to tangle in legal costs. I'm not willing to champion a fight against the Riders to try to see if there's a legal opinion here that I can't see right now to try to get a couple extra dollars out of it, because I'm pretty sure we'll lose. So I think this is a well brought out agreement out of a bad situation. And I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm a big enough fan to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Radens.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, in the report under the community well-being impact, it does state there that pursuing the full repayment for the 2020 and 2021 year could negatively impact the community partnership between the city and the riders. So can you please maybe elaborate a little bit more about
through the chair, I think generally I would just say any time you end up in court arguing with another entity about something, it generally doesn't end in a super positive relationship. And I would say even just city reputationally, we want to, as much as possible, get along with our partners. Our driving recommendation really was a risk-based financial and legal recommendation. But I would say that it's also important to us that we're, whenever possible, maintaining and strengthening partner relationships whenever we can.
You can find more clips from Regina City Council meetings at youtube.com/@PDCityHall. Thanks for listening.